Ever since probably the PlayStation 3 era, I have been a huge fan of the Atelier Alchemy games. Having played several of them, I really love the aspect of the alchemy, building your shop, and all that kind of stuff. Even so much that around the Vita era, I think I got pretty much every single Vita version they had. So who's to blame me? The moment that I seen management of Novice Alchemist, I immediately thought it was an anime adaptation of Atelier Ryza. Now, granted, can you blame me? I mean, besides the thigh aspect, I think it's pretty much the main character of the Ryza game in this show. One could even note that management of Novice Alchemist source material came out pretty much the same exact month as a certain Ryza game. Obviously, things add up there. And while I was bummed that management of Novice Alchemist was not Atelier Ryza adaptation, I was surprised to see how much similarities the two of them have, which to be honest, is a good thing. Taking a lot of the things that I love of the Atelier Alchemist games and making an anime out of it. And after watching the first 3 episodes of Novice Alchemist, I can honestly say I'm pretty surprised with what I got. But this is my thoughts on those first 3 episodes, so let's jump right into it. Management of Novice Alchemist opens up with a girl named Sarasa, who's had a very rough life. When she was just a child, she enjoyed hanging out with her parents at their shop, but unfortunately one day she received the news that while her parents were actually transporting goods, they were attacked by a band of bandits. And it gives us an indication very quickly at their funeral that there's a couple guys in the area that seem to be snickering about their death. People that were actually looking to steal the work that her mother and father did. And unfortunately, having nobody to turn to, Sarasa is given up to an orphanage. And at this orphanage, she doesn't give up her parents' dreams. She works day and night studying to become an alchemist, just like her parents. And this all leads to her going to the Royal Alchemy Academy, a place that doesn't really discriminate against commoners or nobles. A place that by her own hard work, she can succeed. And here, similar to when she was at the orphanage, all of her focus is on studying and doing part-time work, and even becoming an apprentice to a lady named Ophelia who is an alchemist in the area. But unfortunately, this means that she doesn't really have any friends. She meets nobody else besides her shisho. This all leads to her taking the big exam at the academy, the one that tells if you're going to be an alchemist or not. And unfortunately, when she arrives at the exam, they place out a whole bunch of different materials and she's supposed to make a potion. Now, unfortunately, she realized very quickly it seems like they were trying to trick her because one of the materials in the group looks like the material that she needs, but it's not. And so this leads to her in her head realizing, man, I think they're trying to basically fool whoever's taking the exam. I have the ingredients here to make a high potion, but they said to make a lower potion. So she decides to make the high potion instead, pouring as much mana as possible into it, which is sort of unseen for any student at this stage. But she believes that's the thing that's supposed to choose who's good alchemist and who's not. Of course, we find out later on is because the person that puts out the ingredients screwed up. And so they obviously recognize that she's really good, but they won't tell anybody because that would look really bad to the academy. So she passes with flying colors, goes back to her shisho, ends up buying the 10 works of alchemy before she decides to head out on her own to try to find somewhere to work as an alchemist. She doesn't want to work under her shisho because she wants to grow. So her master ends up buying her own shop that's way out in the middle of nowhere. That's where Sarasa ends up going and setting up her new shop. And what kind of follows this is that you gotta get the sense that Sarasa feels uncomfortable at this new village. It's a big, wide open area, all the materials she needs. Her shop is kind of run down, but it was really cheap. But additionally, she has a lot of insecurities about herself. This village has no alchemist, and so there's gonna be a lot of expectations placed upon her, and she feels like because she's still a child, they might not see her adequate enough. And again, because she doesn't really spend much time socializing when she grew up, she's having a lot of struggles and anxieties around meeting new people. But even still, she gets a clear sense over time that these people are very welcoming. They haven't had an alchemist in a long time and they have high expectations for her. And her presence here is a good thing for their village. And yes, as we'll see, over time, she's incredibly good at what she does. Even so far as saving the life of this girl who lost her arm to a bear attack. And then eventually protecting an entire village from a bear attack. So my thoughts on management of Novice Alchemist. I am actually really enjoying this show, and I'm actually surprised that I am. Coming into it, I thought it was just going to be a very budget anime, you know, just to stick it out there, sell some merch or something like that, but it really feels like there's something behind this show. Like I said, it gives me a lot of nostalgia to the Atelier Alchemy series. A girl setting out on her own adventure, having to gather materials, make things, all that kind of stuff. Now, I will say, don't expect this whole thing where she's setting out a bunch of stuff and synthesizing things into something. It's as simple as kind of throwing ingredients in and mixing it up. And she's only done about a couple times in these first 3 episodes. More of the focus actually is on Sarasa and her own insecurities. Again, setting out on her own and having to learn to socialize with people and having those insecurities around people. I really enjoyed the time that we had with Sarasa first arriving at this village. Again, she assesses the place that she bought, but then quickly shifts to her actually meeting people in the village. First, this daughter of the shop owner, meeting her, quickly being introduced to this other lady who kind of walks her around the village, so she meets the carpenter, meets the blacksmith, and the entire time, again, she feels like she's inadequate in her role. Again, seeing herself obviously as a child and that these people will have too much expectation on her or won't trust her to do her job properly. The past alchemist that was there was much older and had to actually retire. But despite that, not even seeing what she's capable of, this village is welcoming her in. Also much they do like this goofy little initiation by giving her this plate saying that it's like a village specialty and it's just full of bugs and it completely freaks her out. But then you have the next morning where all the villagers come in, they apologize because they were probably a little bit too tough on her, and then they all go through the efforts of helping her rebuild her place. Putting up a fence for her, fixing her roof, fixing her door. They want to welcome her in because she is going to obviously be an asset to this village, despite her thinking that she's inadequate. And I like that they welcome her in before they even know her capabilities, because what we see obviously following this is that she ends up saving the life of a gatherer, and then later on, saving the entire village from bears. They even had this moment where the master comes by to visit her to make sure that she's settled in and everything, and it was really cute because she came there expecting that Sarasa would be kind of huddled up in a corner crying and that she was going to swoop her back up in her arms and take her back to their old village. But Sarasa doesn't want her to worry. She wants to prove herself. So she kind of says, no, I'm perfectly fine. Then shortly later that night ends up crying in a corner. So again, it really does hit heavy on the insecurities that she has, which makes perfect sense. This is a person who's lived their whole life up in an orphanage, studying at school, and now she's in an unknown place all by herself. She feels like she has nothing at this point. She has that isolation. Again, at its core, that's the stuff that I love so much about the show. And technically her building her own shop, curing the ingredients and talking to her Shisho about procuring materials, going out and fighting bears. Again, similar to Atelier series, going out and fighting monsters herself to get rare materials, and those materials are finite. A thing they really hit heavy on with this girl that gets attacked by a bear is that the entire time Sarasa is trying to make sure with them that they're going to pay for the materials that she has to use to save her arm and her life. And although people get angry at her, saying, how can you put a value to a life? The point they bring up later on is that there is a price to everything. That because she used so many very rare, very expensive materials, she can no longer use that for the next person. So while she can help this girl get to 100%, restore her arm and everything, that means that the materials that she used could have been used to heal 100 more other people. There's a value to everything, and she's trying to make sure they understand that because this isn't something that she can just produce on a regular basis. And it wasn't Sarasa being cold, because she does still acknowledge in the end, if they said they wouldn't pay for it, I probably still would have done it. But this is a business, and she does technically need to keep the doors open. Which, yes, later on they do define. I like that at the end of every episode, they technically say how much she spent in the episode. Like in the first episode, like I said, she does buy these 10 alchemy works, which are this big novel series that has pretty much everything you can make. And it's supposed to be like 25 million, whatever currency they have, but she was able to get it for like 5 million because it was from her master. Well, the treatment they list later on for this girl to restore her arm and save her life was like 20 million. So it gives you an idea that this is a large sum of money. But again, it emphasized the idea that this was a lot of money. This is something that people don't come across easily. Shoot, the 5 million that she bought the books for took her entire time in schooling to get in part-time jobs. And again, this isn't something that can just be poofed out of nowhere. And I like that they had one person that was actually defending Sarasa, pulling these guys out of the facility because like they were obviously getting irate with her while she was performing this. And he later tells them, this is all a system. Gatherers have to go out and get the materials, bring it to the alchemist. The alchemist makes it into something that then treats people. It's not something that just appears out of nowhere. You're putting weight to a life, but the gatherers themselves risk their lives to get those materials. And so you can't just waste them. Again, it was a side story that I really wasn't expecting from this series. That along with the fact that she has these insecurities was really nice, and I really wasn't expecting it from the show. But that's when we get into the third episode. And honestly, the third episode is something that has me really worried about this series. The third episode is the big bear attack. The moment where you have all these fire bears coming to attack this village. And so Sarasa helps the village prepare and build the structures and stuff that they need to fight these bears. And yes, I like the fact that he had all these villagers coming together to help her, and she was kind of guiding them through the process. It ultimately, in the end, just turns into Sarasa going into enhanced mode and going around and one-shotting everything. And that really wasn't what I was wanting in this series. It has turned into an OP protagonist character story. So there's why I have my worry. I hope this doesn't mean that going forward, that's what we're supposed to expect. The stuff that I was enjoying was her building her shop, her insecurities, her learning to meet people and socialize, the materials and the cost of saving lives, all that kind of stuff was good. Not the OP protagonist going around and slicing things up. Though it does play into the whole Atelier series things where you go out and kill monsters, get materials, come back to the place, synthesize it into something, and use it to help somebody. I just hope that that's not the focus. That's not really what I was enjoying about the series, and it kind of just turned it into another OP protagonist show. I don't think it'll turn that just because of what they kind of established in the first episode. This idea that she bought this 10 complete works of alchemy. And she kind of insinuated to her master, hey, have you actually mastered all these? And she's like, no, only crazy people do. Because when you get to like the later volumes, all it really is making these really complicated artifacts, and most people don't really care to go that far. So it kind of insinuates that you have like, healing potions are in the first volume, and as you go along, you're synthesizing like materials and artifacts and gear and stuff like that most people don't really need. But it is cool because there was several things that she gave Sarasa as a gift. Things like, a bottomless bag that has like lowered weight and all this kind of stuff. It kind of, again, plays into that whole alchemy thing that I really do enjoy. And I hope they get more into that stuff. And again, Sarasa building confidence in herself and gaining friends in this village, because I think that's the good, solid stuff in this series. But yeah, despite my issues with episode 3, it's been a really solid series so far, and I really wasn't expecting that. I'm enjoying it a lot more than I thought I would, and I cannot wait for more of it. But that's my thoughts on management of Novice Alchemist. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure to hit that like button down below, comment, let me know about the episodes, and if you're going to be checking it out. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you get all my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top lists. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, we have a Patreon link, a tips link, and a super thanks button down below. Greatly appreciate it, but it does, and y'all take care.